Why is there all
If your friend framed you for a crime you didn't commit, would you snitch on them? Or would you take the fall? Because this was a choice I had to make one time, and let me just say, I did not make the right decision. It all started when I went to the mall with my friend. It was supposed to just be a chill Saturday. Me and my friend Harry, who were bored and broke, were trying to think of things to do. And by putting our 3 brain cells together, we landed on going to the mall. This was a place me and Harry went a lot. Not because we like shopping, but because this was always where the pretty girls were and we would try to flirt with them. And by flirting with them, I mean walking by them without making eye contact and hoping that they fall in love with us. So that's what we did. We're just at the mall walking around, but out of nowhere, my friend goes, "Yo, let's pop into this Best Buy real quick. I need some headphones." Now this was a weird thing for Harry to say because, like I said earlier, we were broke. Like to the point where I considered going live online pretending to be an NPC and saying, "Thank you for the rose." So I knew Harry couldn't afford any headphones, but I just assumed he wanted to browse around and not actually buy anything, so I went in there with him. And that is where I messed up. So we're in Best Buy, just browsing around. I'm in the fridge section hoping there's actual food inside it.
Cause I'm a big back.
Harry's in the speakers section connecting his phone to the speakers, playing moaning noises. We were just having fun. I didn't think we were actually in the store for any specific reason, but little did I know, Harry had a plan the whole time. Because I had my backpack on that I bring everywhere. It just has the daily essentials in it. Phone charger, snacks, water, LeBron Barbie doll, just the normal stuff. But for some reason, while I was off to the side just looking at some microwaves, my friend must have decided that this was the perfect time to go behind my back and frame me for a crime that should have never happened. Now here's the thing. I didn't see this crime happen. I didn't hear it. I didn't feel it. All I know is, about 10 minutes later, we tried leaving Best Buy. But the moment we walked through that front door, you know what we hear? Beep, beep, beep. The shoplifting alarm goes off. Right when this happened, my first thought wasn't, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." No, I was thinking, oh, these alarms must be malfunctioning, because there was no reason for them to actually go off. I didn't steal anything. I looked over at Harry and saw that he had nothing on him, so it must have just been one big mistake, right? I even laughed because in my head, there was 0% chance that we had done anything wrong. But that laughter stopped real quick when 3 Best Buy employees came sprinting over to us like we just stole the ring from Golem. When the employees got to us, they didn't look mad. They were professional, but they had this look on their face. You know the one I'm talking about? It's that, "Don't move a muscle or we'll treat you like a criminal" look. And then they say, "Excuse me, we need to check your bags. Our system flagged something when you guys tried to walk out." And again, I'm chill about it because in my head, I'm thinking this will be the easiest misunderstanding of all time. I was actually excited for them to look because I knew I was innocent. So I unzip my bag, flip it open confidently for them to look, and boom, sitting right on top, like it had just somehow teleported there, was a brand new computer. Not a computer I brought with me, no. It was a computer from the store that was still in its case, just chilling inside my backpack. My first reaction when seeing it was just confusion. I knew I didn't put that there. So how did it randomly appear? I turned to my friend with the most confused look on my face and said, "Did you put this here?" But when I asked that, he just stood frozen like a statue in a wax museum. No expression, nothing. That was the first weird sign of me. Why would he react like that? I look back at the employees and honestly say, "I have no idea how that got in there." And one of them, this guy with the most serious dad voice ever, goes, "Sir, I'm gonna need you to come with us." So now I'm following the Best Buy employees through the store like I'm being escorted to the electric chair. Meanwhile, my friend, you know, the guy who just potentially committed a felony while using my backpack as a smuggling device, is following behind me, still not saying anything. They bring us through a door labeled "Employees Only," which felt like walking into the back rooms of reality. You don't realize how eerie the inside of a Best Buy can be until you walk into these rooms. The lights are dimmer, the air is colder, and the vibes are just awful. We walked into this tiny room that looked like a mix of a break room, an interrogation room, and the room where the Geek Squad employees go when they don't want to fix your phone. And then one of the employees goes, "You guys sit tight. We've already contacted law enforcement." Wait. Law enforcement? For what? I thought they were just going to take us back here, make us give the computer back, tell us to not do that again or else, and then let us leave. So why is law enforcement coming over a misunderstanding? At this point, I start sweating. So I turn to my friend and whisper, "Dude, please tell me you know what's going on. Did you actually put this in my backpack? Is it some sort of prank or something?" But once again, he's not giving any answers. I still didn't know what was up with him. But after finding out the whole truth a little bit later, I could not have been more disappointed in him. So I'm pacing back and forth in this Best Buy back room, trying not to have a full-blown mental breakdown next to this vending machine that only sells off-brand sodas. Like, what do you mean do I want some Dr. Bob? Meanwhile, the employees left the room telling us to wait there and that they would be back in a couple minutes. Then one of them comes back in with a printed sheet of paper and says, "Now normally when someone attempts to steal something, you might get a warning or a 6-month ban from the store, but in this case, it's different. Because the retail price of that laptop is $1,099. Now let me explain why that matters. Stealing something worth under $950 is just a misdemeanor. But over $950, that's grand theft, which means we have to contact law enforcement and let them handle it. This whole situation was getting way too serious, way too fast. I didn't even know what grand theft meant. I just thought that was a video game. So I go, wait, I didn't steal anything though, I promise. Check the cameras. And they go, oh, don't worry, we're pulling the camera footage right now. So I'm thinking, phew, this will prove that I'm innocent and they'll let me go. But when I tell you what I saw in that camera footage, somehow it made the situation 10 times worse. Because they leave us alone for a few minutes while they're reviewing the footage. And I'm just sitting there, spiraling. And my friend tries to say something, but I cut him off before he can and go, dude, we could actually go to jail for this. You realize that, right? Jail. Like we're about to be sleeping in bunk beds and sharing the same toilet. Actually, now that I think about it, jail just sounds like a sleepover with your homies. That don't sound too bad. But still, I didn't want to go. Now that I knew that computer magically just appeared in my bag, I didn't trust anyone or anything, including Harry. Because I started thinking, Harry had to have done this. He knew I wasn't paying attention and he slipped it in my bag. But as I'm going through this in my head, the one question I keep having is, why? So I ask him, Harry, be honest with me. Did you set me up? And he just looks at me, panicked with his eyes wide, and goes, no man, I didn't do that. The security camera footage will prove it. I don't know what happened. I wasn't sure whether to believe him or not. As he's pleading his innocence to me, the employee comes back into the room. We've got the footage. The cops are almost here. You'll be able
FanDuel's dropping profit boosts every college football Saturday. So how do we spread the word?
I got it. We boost our bus.
Review it with them. Oh, great. We get to do a watch along of Casper the Ghost putting a computer in my backpack with the police. Nice. So we sit there in awkward silence with the employees, just waiting around, and then finally, we hear it. A knock on the door. The employees open it up, and 2 cops come walking inside. And when these cops walked in, everything just felt more tense. Like they had that police aura that just makes you scared. One officer was really tall, probably like 6'7". 6'7". Okay. But he had a mustache that screamed, I don't mess around. Like that man definitely had some food saved in there for later. The other cop looked fresh out of college. Like this could have been his first week on the job. They shut the door behind them, and the mustache one says, all right, boys, let's talk about what happened today. We're gonna need you two to walk us through exactly what happened. From the moment you came into the store to the moment you tried leaving. Now, before I can say anything, my friend suddenly has the urge to speak now and goes, we were just at the mall. We weren't planning on buying anything. We weren't doing anything wrong. I promise. I just like coming into Best Buy because it has really cool stuff. I promise we didn't do anything wrong. So he's just rambling. And with every new word that's coming out of his mouth, I'm just thinking, dog, I'm going to jail. This man is the worst liar I've ever seen. So while he's yapping, the mustache cop holds his hand up and is like, son, slow down. Then he turns to me and goes, you, backpack guy, what's your version of the story? First of all, backpack guy? I'm pretty sure that nickname is already taken by the one guy that did the floss dance. But regardless, I respond and say, look, officer, I know this sounds dumb, but I promise I had no idea the laptop was even in my backpack. I didn't touch it, I didn't grab it, I didn't put it in there. I never even saw it. The first time I even realized anything was wrong was when the alarm went off and they checked my bag. Mustache cop raises an eyebrow and goes, so how did it get in there then? And when he asks that, I just freeze. Because what was I supposed to say? Telling him that I think my friend did it just felt like snitching when I didn't know the whole truth. But saying I have no idea how it got in there and it just magically appeared is not a believable story. So I needed something. But I wasn't gonna snitch on my boy when I didn't know the whole story. So I go, I don't know. I didn't see it happen, but it wasn't me. That's all I know. Mustache cop doesn't react. He just says, all right, well, we're gonna review the footage together and find out the truth. They spin around a dusty little monitor like it's a Blockbuster premiere. And no kidding, in that moment, I've never been more nervous to look at a television screen in my life. Not even when I had to watch Teletubbies growing up and I saw that creepy little sun peeking out every time. The footage starts. It shows us walking into Best Buy. Everything looks normal. We're talking, we're laughing. Eventually, it gets to the point where we're in the computer section. And there it is. My friend Harry is holding a box in his hand. You can see me turn around to look at some display and my backpack is on the ground right behind me. The moment I do that, he slips the laptop into my bag like he's some sort of magician. Now here's the part where I almost threw up. In the footage, I turn around right as he's putting it in there. So it looks like I caught him in the act of doing it. Like I saw it happen and was in on it myself. As if this was some sort of elaborate plan we had together. And even worse, there's this moment right after where he says something and I laugh. I'm guessing he said a joke or something, but on camera, it looks real suspicious. Like we're in on this whole thing together. Now when it actually happened, did I see him sneak the computer into my backpack? No. I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't. The footage eventually ends and the cops both look at us, looking for an explanation. I say out loud, I promise it's not what it looks like. But Mustache Cop just has a stone cold look on his face. And then he says, you know lying to a cop is a crime, right? Look, we've seen people play dumb thousands of times. And this footage right here looks like you're playing dumb. I wanted to scream because I knew I was innocent, but all the evidence pointed towards that being not true. So now I'm sitting there watching my life fall apart in 480p resolution, and all I can think about is, how did I end up here? Because why did Harry even put that computer into my backpack and let me leave knowing it was in there? Was he trying to set me up? Or was there a bigger reason that this all happened? And that's when Mustache Cop drops the line that made my soul leave my body. Retail value on this computer is over $1,000. That makes this a felony. A second later, he told us that the punishment for a felony is 2 years in prison. I can't do that. I know what happens to guys like me in there. I would not make it. I'm stuttering.
I just tried the Perfect Match AI from GlassesUSA.com, and it's amazing. It's an AI tool that matches you with glasses based on your unique facial features. And the best part, they actually fit perfectly. So the Perfect Match AI made this.
But I wasn't even. I didn't mean to. He holds his hand up again and goes, "Doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what happened." And then, like we're starring in an episode of Law and Order, Best Buy unit, they tell us to stand up. So we do, and then they say, you guys are under arrest. And they handcuff us. I'd never been handcuffed before, but it felt way worse than I ever imagined. First off, they're really cold and really tight. So to all the freaky people out there that like having handcuffs put on them, I don't know how y'all do it. They walk us through the store like criminals, and every customer is just watching us. Some confused, some entertained. One little kid even goes, "Mommy, are they bad guys?" And I just wanted to scream, "I'm not, it's Harry." But nothing I said was gonna help at this point. When we got outside, they put us in the back of a police car. And as soon as that door closed, it felt real. Too real. I turned to my friend, who still hadn't said a word, and just stared at him. My brain was trying to decide whether I should panic, rage at him, or just curl up into a ball and cry. And then finally, he looks at me in the eyes and whispers, "I didn't mean for this to happen." So I just said, "What do you mean you didn't mean for this to happen? What were you even trying to do in the first place?" But then the cop got in the car, and we all went quiet. So he drives us to the police station, and now I'm shaking. It's not even that the building is scary, it's just bland. Like it has no soul, and it's meant to be that way. They separate my friend the moment we walk in. And the scariest part about them separating us was, I didn't know what story Harry was gonna tell them. What if he made it sound like I was the bad guy? Like I'm sure the moment the officers offered him a Big Mac, he would snitch on me. Now this is when the overthinking officially began. Because for the first time since this whole thing started, I had a second alone to process it all. And the panic started rushing in like the Kool-Aid man running through a wall. Like, wait, hold on. If the laptop was in my bag, does that make me the person who actually stole it? Meaning, am I gonna be the one who gets in the most trouble? Because from their perspective, it just looks like I tried walking out of that store with $1,000 computer in my backpack like it was a Fortnite back bling. They put me in this small room that just had a desk and 2 chairs on it. And I've watched enough TV shows to know this was the interrogation room. It was a table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner, and this big window that I knew someone was behind watching us. And I'm sure the people behind it were just thinking, yep, that's the one that's gonna cry. So I'm just sitting there alone, trying to keep my cool. I look around for something, anything to distract me. But all I see is this sign on the wall that says, lying to an officer is a felony. Well, that's not good, because I knew the actual truth would just sound like one big lie to them. I don't know if they were trying to scare me with that sign, but it worked. Because the second the officer walks in and sits across from me, my brain goes blank. I couldn't even remember what city we were in. He leans forward and goes, all right, once again, why don't you tell me exactly what happened? And when I say I fumbled the bag, I mean, I fumbled it, because I responded by saying, we were just at the mall and then Best Buy. I sounded like a record player that just got water spilt on it. I couldn't put a coherent sentence together to save my life. The cop squints at me like he's trying to figure out if I'm just dumb or guilty. At this point, I was already thinking about how I was gonna pose in my mugshot so that I looked good in it, because I knew that was where this was heading. But finally, I managed to choke out the whole story. How we were just looking around, how my friend must have just stuck it in my bag without me knowing, and the cop just listens to me, stone-faced, not saying anything at all. He asks me again, slower this time. So you're saying you didn't know the laptop was in your bag? I know he thinks I'm lying, but it's the truth. So I say, yeah, I had no idea. If you look at the footage real closely, you can tell I didn't see him even put it in there. But right after I say that, the officer gives me this weird little smile, like the kind that made me think, oh no, he knows something that I don't. He stands up, leaves, and tells me he'll be back in a second. And this was the moment where I started to genuinely wonder if my friend set me up. Like, okay, if it was an accident, why didn't he say anything to me? Why did he just stand there like a mannequin the entire time? And I started piecing together what I thought happened in my brain. I'm like, wait, what if he's been planning this for weeks? What if he planted the laptop on me so I would get in trouble and he could, I don't know, steal my girlfriend or something? I'm just kidding. We all know I'm just kidding. But anyways, I didn't know what his objective was. And just when I'm about to have a full mental breakdown trying to figure all this out,
Zoe?
Yeah. From meeting for coffee?
the door opens again. But this time, 2 officers walk in, and they're holding a printed sheet of paper. They sit down and slide the paper across the table. It's a screenshot from the security footage. I lean in to look at it, and you know what it is? An image of my friend holding the laptop behind me while I'm looking at some headphones. But the catch? He's smirking in it, smiling like he just pulled off the heist of the century. I tried getting a couple words out, but they cut me off and go, "We saw this whole video. After reviewing it, it doesn't look too good." What do you mean it doesn't look too good? Bro, I am the victim here. I start stammering like, but I didn't even... The other cop tells me to calm down and that they need to finish talking to my friend before they can make any final decisions. This made me super nervous because, like I said, I couldn't trust Harry anymore. So I didn't know what he was gonna tell the cops. I thought they were gonna come back with a jumpsuit and be like, "Put this on, you're doing 10 years. 20 minutes pass before they come back in the room and tell me to follow them. We walk down this long hallway and they take me into a different room. When I go inside, I see that Harry's in it. He's sitting there, pale as a ghost. And the energy in the room is tense. Like we're both trying our hardest not to look at each other. One of the officers sits us down and goes, "Okay, we've reviewed the footage and heard both sides. The truth is, the situation could have gone a lot worse. Normally, shoplifting something this expensive is charged as a felony. But given that you're both kids, and you both have clean records," my heart's pounding, "and the fact that Best Buy didn't want to press any charges, we've decided to let you off." That cop deserved 5 big booms after that. I flew back in my chair out of excitement like I just got hit with a tranquilizer dart. But then, of course, as we thought we were in the clear, the cop goes, "That doesn't mean there won't be any consequences though. You guys are both banned from that Best Buy for a year. And if anything like this happens again," but before he could even finish, I go, Nope, never again, officer. I'm never even gonna look at another computer in my life. I'm switching to notebooks, paper only." They walk us out to the lobby, and that's it. We're free. But even after we go outside, there's still one unanswered question. Why did Harry put that computer in my backpack in the first place, and why did he leave it in there when we walked out of the store? Well, finally, now that we knew we weren't in any sort of real danger, he told me that he snuck the computer into there because he wanted to do a magic trick on me. His plan was to magically make a computer appear in my backpack. But after he put it in there, he got distracted by something and literally just forgot that he ever did that. And that's when I realized Harry wasn't evil. He just had the attention span of a fly.
If you mash strawberries and layer it between peanut butter and chocolate, then freeze it, you get the most delicious.
If you've ever thought about exploring an abandoned school, just know it is not safe. Because I made the biggest mistake of my life a couple months ago when some friends and I decided to explore an abandoned school on a road trip. But what started as just curiosity turned into one of the most terrifying nights of my life after we heard a noise that seemed innocent but would later prove to not be. So let's start from the beginning. What would you do if you saw a massive creepy building in the middle of nowhere during a road trip? Because that's exactly what me and my friends saw when we were driving from Los Angeles to Vegas. We were in the middle of a long road trip and bored out of our minds from how long the drive was when suddenly my friend who was driving slams on the brake and goes, "What is that?" So we all look to where he's pointing and see an absolute massive abandoned building in the middle of nowhere. So of course, it sparked our curiosity right away. Considering the fact that we still had a couple hours before getting to our destination, we thought this was a good place to stop and stretch our legs. So we all agreed we should go check it out. But we had no idea how much further we would go than just checking it out. Because at first, none of us knew what it was. We all had our guesses. One of my friends thought it was an old shopping mall. One of them thought it was an old abandoned government building. Because this place looked like a Spirit Halloween when it's not October. There could have been a sign on the outside of it that said free candy inside, and I would have been like, Yeah, that sounds about right. And my big back still would have fell for it too. So none of us had any idea what we were looking at. But the closer we got to it, the more intriguing it became. Because there were vines growing up the side of the building, making it look like it hasn't been touched in years. So all signs pointed to this place being abandoned. Spoiler alert, it was not. Because as we got out of the car to walk up to this place, we finally figured out what it was. Through one of the dirty windows, we could see rows of desks and a chalkboard. Oh my gosh. It's an abandoned school. And something about seeing a place like this, where you know kids used to go to school inside there, and now it being completely empty, felt really off. And that feeling would only get stronger as time went on. By the way, if you see me sweating, it's because I filmed these videos in my closet, and it's so hot today. But whatever, time to lock in again. So we spent about 10 minutes walking around the outside of the building, looking through each window. We could see empty classrooms with desks still arranged in a neat order. There was a hallway with lockers lining the walls, some of them still open. And then in what looked like a cafeteria, there were tables and chairs scattered all around. It was really strange because this place almost felt as if all the students just got up one day, left, and never came back. This was the first thing that didn't make sense, because why would a school just shut down without anything being done to it? And also, we were kind of in the middle of nowhere. So why would there be a school in this location at all? There were a lot of questions we had, but the answer to all these was not what we expected. Because the whole time we're walking around the outside, my gut is telling me that something's just off about this place. But all my friends wanted to go inside. And if there's one thing about me, if my friends are down to do something, I'm down to do it too. Like if you asked if I wanted to go skydiving into a volcano, I would say absolutely not. But the moment my friend goes, hey, we're going skydiving into a volcano tomorrow, want to come? I'm there. I'm down for anything. So now that we decided we wanted to check out this place, it was time to find a way inside. And that was pretty easy, because as we were walking around, we noticed a place where a door was supposed to be was just completely missing. Kind of weird if you ask me, right? But at the time, I just rolled with it. When we first stepped inside, I remember thinking that this would just be a quick look around. We'd check out a few rooms, take some pictures thinking that we'd gain so much aura from them, when in reality, we just looked chopped, and then get back on the road. But unfortunately, I was wrong. It started out normal going inside. It was anything you would expect from an abandoned building. But you know that feeling when you realize you might have made a huge mistake? That's exactly what hit me about 15 minutes after we walked into this abandoned school. Because we were checking out what seemed to be the main office when suddenly I heard it, a beeping sound. Not loud, but definitely electronic. It almost sounded like when your smoke detector battery is dying, but it was more consistent. So I stopped what I was doing and listened. Hey guys, do you hear that? They all went quiet, and now everyone could hear it. Beep, beep, beep. Now, I knew it was real. The sound was really strange because it echoed off all the empty walls and made it impossible to find out where it was coming from. We tried walking in different directions to see if it got louder or softer, but it seemed to be the same volume no matter where we went. It was almost like the sound was bouncing around the whole building. And this is when our whole vibe started to change. We went from being excited to explore this new place to now being confused and a little bit worried. None of us had a good answer for what this sound could have been. One of my friends thought it could have possibly been a security camera noise. And if you guys remember the abandoned mansion video, trust me, we did not want to run into any security. But that theory went out the window after something else happened. And this is where it got really weird. The beeping went on for around a minute, super consistently. But then, it just stopped. Complete silence. We all looked at each other like, okay, that was strange, but maybe it's over now. So we kept exploring. We checked out the gymnasium, which was huge and still had basketball hoops hanging from the ceiling. But then about 5 minutes later, the beeping started again. But this time, it only lasted for a few seconds before stopping. That's when we all started to get genuinely spooked. The pattern made no sense. Why would it start beeping for a minute, then stop, then suddenly start again for 5 seconds? We tried to convince ourselves it maybe was just old building systems. Maybe there was a backup generator that was working somewhere. Or it really could have been a smoke detector. But none of these explanations felt right. The timing was too random. The worst part was not knowing what we were dealing with. If it was just old building systems, then fine. We could ignore it and keep exploring. But if someone else was actually in there with us, we needed to know who and where they were. After the third time the beeping happened, we needed to make a decision. We could either leave and always wonder what that beeping sound was, or we could go to the source and finally figure it out to put our minds at ease. We weren't quite ready to sit on the road trip for another 5 hours, so we decided to go with option 2. Let me just tell you, that was not the right decision. Because we decided to split up into pairs to cover more ground. My friends and I went toward one side, while the other two went in the opposite direction. The plan was to text each other if anyone heard the beeping sound get louder on their side. We checked room after room, listening carefully for any electronic sounds. Empty classrooms just stared back at us with their broken desks. Some rooms had old teaching materials scattered over the floor, math worksheets from ages ago, and every time we opened a door, My heart would be racing, thinking that this could be the room where we find the source. Then it happened again. The beeping started up. But this time, it sounded like it was coming from a completely different direction than what we heard previously. So Jake looked at me with this confused expression on his face. I swear it was coming from the other side before, but now it sounds like it's coming from upstairs. That's when we started to wonder if whatever was making the sound was moving around the building. Like someone was carrying whatever device was making this noise. Then my phone buzzes, and it's a text from the other two saying, "We heard the noise clearer. It sounds like it's coming from upstairs." We finally started to consider the possibility that we weren't alone in this building. What if someone was just walking around with a phone or something? That wouldn't have been good. Because if someone was actually doing this, they probably knew that we were there too. We were pretty loud when we walked in, so there's no way they wouldn't have heard us. But also think about it this way. If there's someone in an abandoned building in the middle of nowhere, would you want to run into them? I wouldn't, but there was no cars outside this place or anything, so it just brought more mystery to the situation. We decided to meet back up and search together after we agreed that the sound was coming from upstairs. The four of us regrouped in the main hallway, and then we took the stairs up. Every step felt dangerous. I kept looking behind us to make sure that no one was following, and just as we got to the top of the stairs, the beeping sound started again. But this time, we were sure it was coming from the second floor. Once we got to the top, classrooms lined down the hallways on both sides. All of them had their doors closed. That's when the paranoia really started to kick in. Every single closed door could have had a person hiding behind it. We moved slowly down the hall, all right next to each other, and I know we were all thinking the same thing. If someone dangerous pops out, we're using the other person as a human shield. Or maybe they weren't thinking that, but I sure was. So we'd stop by every room to listen for that beeping noise. My hands were shaking as I reached for the door handles. I just watched the new Final Destination movie, and after seeing all the different ways that you could get hurt, I never would have done any of this if I saw that before. But we got about halfway down the hall when the beeping started again. It was definitely coming from one of the rooms at the end. My friend pointed towards a door that was slightly open with darkness behind it. That one. We all nodded and started walking towards it. Every step felt like we were walking into a trap. Then we heard it. Footsteps. But not our footsteps. Different sounds coming from inside that room. And they were heavy, almost as if someone was stomping on the ground. We all froze, because now we knew someone was definitely in that room. And someone who probably knew we were coming right after them. Were the noises on purpose to lure us over there? We had no idea. What do you think is scarier? Finding someone where you expect to see them, or not finding anyone at all when you do? I'm about to make an argument for why the second option is way worse. Because when we finally mustered up the okay, I'm gonna stop doing that. When we finally mustered up the courage to go inside that room, we pushed through the door all at the same time, ready to face whatever was waiting for us. But after opening it, the room was empty. Now the questions were starting to multiply. There were definitely footsteps. That could not have been mistaken for anything else. No chance. We all stood there looking around, completely clueless.
Did you know that QuickBooks users find an average of $6,000 in tax savings? Run your business of one with QuickBooks and maximize your tax deductions. Here's
just waiting for someone to jump out at us. But there was literally nowhere to hide. The room was bare. And after being so worried about the sounds we were hearing, all of a sudden, it was the absence of sound that started to really scare us. The beeping sound had completely stopped. The footsteps that we heard just a few moments ago was nowhere to be seen. It was so quiet you could hear a fly fart. At least when there was beeping, we knew something was happening. Now, we had no idea what was going on. We walked around the entire room, checking every corner. We even checked the ceiling like maybe someone was hiding in the tiles up there. We looked through the windows to see if someone could have possibly jumped out of them, but there was no way. They wouldn't have made it. The confusion was eating at all of us. But then we thought of a really interesting theory. What if all the noises we had just been hearing were coming from a speaker and not someone at all? Like someone was just using a speaker to play all those noises and prank us, or maybe to warn us to get out. That could have explained the sound of the footsteps too. This was our best guess at the moment, but the reality was much more complex than we ever could have thought, because the panic started to settle in when we realized we might be dealing with something that we can't predict its next move. If there was a person in the building, at least we knew what we were dealing with, but this felt like we were being messed with by something that's invisible. Like we were trapped in some type of game where we didn't even know the rules. And what do you do when you're playing a game that you know you can't win? You quit. So that's what we did. We decided to leave. We were gonna walk back downstairs, out the building, through the fence, and get in the car. No more exploring, no more trying to figure out whatever those noises were. We just wanted to get back on the road and pretend none of this ever happened. So we made it to the staircase and started heading back down towards the first floor. By the way, keep in mind, I was fine with doing this. I didn't care as much as the others to figure out what that noise was. I just wasn't trying to get abducted by any aliens. Unless the aliens are like interested in me, then in that case, hit me up. But as we're going back towards the car, I realized we had a 5-hour road trip coming up and I really needed to use the bathroom. And I didn't think it would be a good idea to pee my pants for the 3rd time that day, so I told my friends I was gonna use the bathroom in the school and I would meet them by the exit. I had no idea that this bathroom visit would change everything we knew about this abandoned school. Because as I'm doing my business in the bathroom, I noticed something on the sink that makes me start to shake. A soda can. But not just any soda can. One that was clearly opened very recently. How did I know? It was still fizzing. I could hear the tiny bubbles popping at the surface. So my brain started to go crazy trying to figure this out. Carbonation doesn't last that long once you open a can, maybe a few hours at most. This meant someone had opened this can today. And more likely, it was in the past few hours. All those electronic beeping sounds, the footsteps we heard upstairs, suddenly it felt like we weren't alone again. Someone else was definitely in this building with us. And they weren't just passing through. No, they were comfortable enough to open a soda can in the bathroom and just chill. That meant they probably knew the building pretty well. But wait, if the soda can was still fizzing, that meant if someone was actually in here, they were probably really close by. And that's when I heard something that made my heart drop. A shuffling sound come from one of the bathroom stalls. It was quiet, but it was definitely there. Like someone shifting their weight, trying to get comfortable while trying to stay hidden. I froze completely. Part of me wanted to run out and never act like any of this happened. But I was also terrified that if I moved, whoever just made that noise would know that I discovered them. The shuffling sound happened again, definitely coming from the last stall at the end. The door was closed, but there was a gap at the bottom so I could see if anyone's feet was under there. And you know I like my feet. Sorry. So I bent down slowly and quietly and I looked. What did I see? Shoes. Beat up sneakers pointed toward the stall door as if someone was using the toilet. I had to make a choice. I could either run away, let this person stay in the bathroom stall and hope they don't come after me, or I could find out who they were and what they really wanted. And obviously, I needed a good YouTube video, so I tried to figure out who they were. No, I'm just kidding. That's not why I did it. I love you guys, but I ain't doing that for y'all. The real reason I wanted to figure out what was beyond that door is because this person clearly already heard us. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm 3 feet away from them. If they wanted to do something to me, I'm already cooked. So I might as well just see what's in there. So I took a breath and knocked on the door softly. Hey, I know you're in there. After a couple seconds, the door slowly opens and this guy peeks out at me. He looked rough, like he hadn't showered in weeks, which isn't that weird because I haven't showered at all this year. But still, his hair was all messy and his clothes were dirty and wrinkled. But the look on his face wasn't scary or threatening. He just looked absolutely terrified. Like he was more afraid of me than I was of him. So we both just stared at each other for a few seconds, not knowing what to say. Then he finally opens his mouth. Please don't call the cops. I'm not causing any trouble. I promise. That's when I realized this guy wasn't some crazy person or a criminal. He was just scared and trying to hide from something. The tension in the room completely changed. Instead of being scared of each other, we started to relax a little bit now. And then he told me his whole story. His name was David. And David had been homeless for about 6 months. And apparently, he had been living in this abandoned school for a while because it was dry and relatively safe. The police had already kicked him out twice before, so when he heard people inside the building, he just assumed it was them again, and he ran. That's why he hid when he heard us exploring earlier. Then came the explanation that solved our biggest mystery, the beeping sound. After asking him about this, it turns out it was his microwave. He had this little portable microwave that he used to heat up food, and it kept beeping every time his Hot Pockets were ready. And if you've ever had a Hot Pocket before, you know that it can be 5 million degrees on the outside, but still ice cold on the inside. So he kept having to heat them up. That's why the beeping sounds would start, and then stop, and then start again. So I brought my friends over to the bathroom, and we explained the whole situation together. And now, I'm using this experience as an excuse to never go inside a school again.